Hi everybody, welcome to Leon's Chainsaw Parts and Repair. It's been a while since I posted a video of a saw that I'm working on for myself, but here we go. Make sure this camera didn't rotate too much. Okay, looking at a Homelite 8800. I've spent a better part of a year putting together parts for this thing. Just getting everything together. I bought a lot that had about 3 carcasses in it, and that was enough to pretty much put together one saw that was in reasonable shape. Man, this thing had some challenges though. Let me tell you, if you're working on an 8800 out there, or a 540, or one of the cutoff saws, a DM54 or MP88, a few things to watch out for. One is the ignition modules are known to be bad, or have a high rate of failure, I should say. But that's not always what your problem is, and I found that out the hard way. So fortunately, well, let me back up. I get these carcass saws. I picked the best metal, body parts, piston and cylinder that was good. Perfect. So I assembled everything, got it in pretty good shape. The end of the crankshaft on this rotating assembly had some burrs on it, kind of mushroomed out, so I cleaned that up, re-threaded it. Realistically, splitting the case and replacing the crank would be the way to go, but the nut holds good. Great, no problem. Well, I don't know how I chose the flywheel that I put on there. It was complete, good magnets, everything, no problem. Or so I thought. But I got it bolted together, couldn't get spark. And I thought, well, hell, I know these coils are not known to be all that good, so I'll wait and source another one. Sourced another used one. It was no good either. I thought, well, that's really just my kind of luck. So this thing sat for almost 6 months, and finally about a week ago a brand new one appeared on eBay. Brand new in the package. Bolted it on tonight. No spark. Now I'd done all the right stuff in between, checking the switch to make sure it wasn't bad, making sure none of the wires were grounded. I'd done all of that. So I knew when it pulled this tonight, I'm like, okay, there has got to be something I'm missing here. And there was just literally no spark. So I decided, there has to be something wrong with that flywheel. And what gave me the idea, other than the obvious, I checked everything else, is when I used my, I like to use the old business card trick for setting the gap between the coil and the flywheel. And when I did that, the magnets on the flywheel didn't pull the coil over tight. I thought, well, that is a little bit strange. And I double checked that, and sure as anything, they weren't as strong as they needed to be. So I pulled one of the other flywheels out that I had from that parts lot. Took forever to get that off. It was really sealed in place, but got it off, put the new one on, and voila, spark. Okay, cool. Well, in the process of working on that, I had gas coming out all over the place. And I'll see if I can get this camera off of here without shaking you guys all to pieces. These things have a unique fuel tank venting system, and the same thing for the oil. The caps are solid. It's not like the old days where they put a vent in the cap. The vents are through those filters. There's one down here. That's the oil tank vent. That's the fuel tank vent. So the sole purpose of those is to allow air in, but not out. So the old filter, you can see, is just soaked in oil here, or gas and oil. So I got to the end of the parts manual, and I don't know exactly what connector they used, but basically it was a duckbill setup on the other end of the hose down in the tank. So I got that replaced. Folded it up. Thought, alright. Cranked it over about 10 times. Nada. I was seeing air bubbles in the fuel line, but it wasn't drawing. And I thought I'd been through this carb. I pulled it off, looked at it, and the diaphragms were just a tiny bit stiff, but not enough to make me think that was any sort of an issue. So I double checked everything, put it back on. Still won't run. Okay, pull it off again, and started really going deep. One of the tests I like to do is get it off, and the metering fuel inlet arm is on the other side down here with the needle. I like to put a piece of hose on here and blow into it and operate that needle to make sure that, you know, it's operating properly, that fuel can move through. And I couldn't, it was completely blocked. So took the filter, the little wire screen out, cleaned it, and it just, there wasn't enough on it to make me think that was the problem. And I got to looking deeper, and it was almost hidden in the shadows, but there were 3 or 4 pieces of varnish about like that. It had just completely sealed off where the inlet needle goes. The fuel would come down, let's see if I get my bearing right, back here on this side. It would go down past the wire mesh filter, and that needle is down below here. So it just wasn't flowing. So the net result, you can see, it is now running. I've got a few things I've got to deal with. I've got the stripped mount here for the AV bolt that I've still got to put a helicoil in. And obviously I need to assemble the rest of the saw. I didn't want to run it for very long without the shroud in place, because without that it's not directing air across the cylinder the way it should. But just quickly take a look at this thing. I've repainted the muffler, sandblasted or media blasted that, came out real nice. At the best clutch of the ones that I had. You can see this is kind of like a lot of our steels today, where the oil pump doesn't drive until the clutch engages. And I haven't filled it with oil yet, but I need to double check all of that. And I've still got a screw to put in back here. But it's a pretty clean saw overall. I got parts all over this bench. There's the full, complete, functioning chain brake, and cylinder cover, air filter parts, more air filter parts. Got the 360 parts mixed in here. This workbench is a disaster. But anyway, folks, I'll get this thing put back together, put a bar on it, and when I've got everything fine-tuned, I'll do one more video of it fully operational. But I'm stoked right now. This has been a long time coming.